World Peace 102. I wanted to add this to the public sermon series, and from time to time in the University of World Peace, I will be speaking to you in a more informal setting, because some of these points are a little bit complicated, and you can't really develop them in a public sermon. I have 5 points that I want to make in World Peace 102 in this course, and that is we need to understand the interdependence of public peace and private peace in the Scriptures. What I have found in Isaiah is that very definitely private peace and public peace are both promised. Isaiah 26:3 reads, "Thou dost keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee, because he trusts in thee." And so there is a private peace promised to us in the Scriptures, in many, many places, but in Isaiah in particular. But then, and this is harder for people in the first world, the developed countries, to accept for some reason, but, and I'll go into that in kind of like the graduate level courses we'll get into later on, why that's so hard for us to accept. But I just want us to look at the facts right now, that public peace is definitely intended to be portrayed in the promises in Isaiah. Isaiah 2:3, "And many people shall come and say, Come, let us go to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, that he may teach us his ways, that we may walk in his paths." And then verse 4, "He shall judge between nations and shall decide for many peoples." So God is going to judge. One nation is deserving some sort of blessing and one nation not, and one people deserving some sort of a blessing and one nation deserving a curse, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and they shall not learn war anymore. So God is definitely promising that there's going to be a process. It says to beat, so it's definitely going to be a process, but that the world is going to learn to not make war anymore. The clear definition of this, what this process looks like, the clear picture of what this process looks like, we can find in Isaiah 11:3 and 4, verse 4 at least. But with righteousness he shall judge the poor, and decide with equity for the meek of the earth. He shall smite the earth with the rod of his mouth. So his judgment, his bringing peace to the public sphere, is described here, or you could say that equity for the meek of the earth, and he shall judge the poor, means that he is bringing good things to the poor. He is bringing good things to the meek of all sorts. And he shall smite the earth with the rod of his mouth. It'll come through his word. And therefore, in Isaiah 11:4, we see that the only way to interpret this is that he shall decide with equity for the meek of the earth, is that all resources on the face of the earth, whether they be personal peace, whether they be wealth, food, and any other kind of resource, he promises those things to the meek of the earth. Isaiah 9:7 says, "Of the increase of his government and of peace there will be no end." So government, or the way God allocates his blessings upon the face of the earth, is called peace. And there does not seem, the best reading of these things seems to be all of God's resources, not just some sort of internal lack of strife within our hearts. So, God promises in Isaiah personal peace, and he promises public peace. But number 2, God is the source of both already. He says in Isaiah 45:7, "I create weal and woe." So all physical, emotional, and spiritual blessings, God already promises or declares that he is the author of them all. So if a person goes around saying God is not the source and does not give us public peace, then what he's saying is God is not giving him whatever public peace he's already enjoying, and that's just not true. God is the source already of whatever public peace we enjoy. Now, point number 3 is that the developed world, which is about 20% of the population of the world, enjoys, from my judgment, enjoys public peace, and the undeveloped world enjoys exponentially less public peace. One way of defining that is from Ecclesiastes 7:7. In the King James Version, it says, "Surely oppression maketh a wise man mad, and a gift destroyeth the heart." Another way of describing that is surely extortion. That's another translation. Surely extortion makes the wise mad, and bribes destroy the mind and the understanding. I would define this, that usually the developed world at least identifies extortion and bribery as things that are to be punished and that are dealt with if they can be proven. And the undeveloped world has no way. First and foremost, the authorities don't believe that they're absolutely wrong, and there's no one to appeal to if you are extorted or if a bribe is demanded of you. So that's what I've experienced in Russia. And when Mr. Stubbyfinger was, in a soft way, assaulting me, I had no one to appeal to. That's the criminal negligence in the non-developed world is a given, and there's no one to appeal to. Extortion and bribery in the undeveloped world is a given, and there's no one to appeal to. And what it says in Ecclesiastes 7:7 is it drives men mad, and it destroys the understanding. And so you find in the undeveloped world these many symptoms of absolute hopelessness and even mental illness that are much greater. So in Russia, there is apparently 80% of the men in Russia have a drinking problem. And that's a typical sign of the undeveloped world. Number 4 is that knowing Christ does give us personal peace, but coming to know Christ, getting to hear the gospel, is dependent on public peace, and so that spreading the gospel completely depends on public peace, not on private peace. And then finally, the less public peace we enjoy, the more meaningless our private peace becomes. So that if you live in a country where extortion is a given and there's no appeal, it says you will be driven mad. Obviously, if a person is physically oppressed and tortured, he will eventually go mad. And that's what's happened, of course, in the gulags in the Soviet Union and other places. So, there is a very, very real interdependence of public peace and private peace, and God promises both of them in the book of Isaiah. And that is what we're all about at the University of World Peace.